Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Whitney, and today I'm coming up on this beautiful Moving Up Monday to talk to you guys. There's a lot of things that we need to talk about. There's a lot of things that needs to be discussed, and I did not feel right in my heart to continue posting without talking about what truly and indefinitely matters. Today we're going to be talking about Black lives, and we're going to be talking about the whole movement, Black Lives Matter. First, I want to get this out the way. I want you guys to like, subscribe, and turn on your post notifications so you never miss when I post a new video. I have a segment here on my channel called A Writer's Scope, where you send to my email whatever advice you need, whatever problems you're going through, etc., etc. The point is for me to give you a third perspective and to help you out on whatever issues that you're going through. Now, I say this all the time, my word is not the law. It's just to help you get a different perspective and to, you know, help you out in whatever issues that you're going through. Maybe you don't have someone to talk to, maybe you would like to have someone to talk to, and I would love to be that person for you. I try to tell you guys every single time I come on here, I try to help everyone and anyone, even if it is just one person. So thank you guys for joining me today, and let's get right on into this video. So I know that I don't necessarily have to give you guys a summary, but it will do a disservice to sort of assume what you guys may already know. I want to talk about the lives that have just passed. Well, not have just passed, but you know, the reason why people are protesting, the reason why people feel like this out of any other time ever, the reason why we're getting the most overwhelming reaction throughout the world, not even just America, is because we've had multiple lives in the last couple of months die because of their skin color, because they were innocent and then all of a sudden their lives are taken. So we're going to be talking about Ahmaud Arbery, we're going to be talking about Breonna Taylor, and we're going to be talking about George Floyd. Now, I have an experience where for the first time ever, it was last Wednesday, a day before, or last Monday, it was the week of George's funeral. I protested for the first time, and it was an exhilarating experience. I'm telling you, being in a community of people who think like you, who know, not necessarily firsthand what you're going through, but recognize that there is a privilege amongst others, whereas like they want to eradicate that privilege, they want to eradicate the systematic racism and the things that comes along with that. Like being in a space where everyone is for you, it's just so exhilarating. You feel one, you feel like where you once felt alone in the world, you feel a sense of community. You know what I'm saying? Because like within the Black community, we have a lot that we go through, and so the number one thing that we go through is the systematic racism that is put onto us by the majority. That to say, Ahmaud Arbery was jogging, okay? Now, if we took away his skin color, I can 100% tell you that nobody would be hunting that man down. That is wrong, okay? Now let's talk about Breonna Taylor. The girl was sleeping in her bed and they shot her 8 times. So you mean to tell me that their plan, like completely take away the fact that they were in the wrong apartment, okay? Say they were in the right apartment. You mean to tell me that your plan was to go in there and to shoot the person in their bed? You weren't even gonna check to see if that was the right person or not. Right, now let's talk about George. Why for 8 minutes and 47 seconds, I believe it was, pressed on his neck, okay? That cop's knee was pressed on his neck. Now, the things that we're going to be talking about today is police brutality. Now, I know everyone's going to be like, oh, well, all police, all cops aren't bad. Okay, fine, but guess what? The cops that are bad, the good cops are not saying anything about that. So because of that, guess what else is happening? Now they're bad because they're just allowing those people to continue to act like that. We have to hold each other accountable, because when we can't, like, that doesn't make sense. You can't have the argument all cops aren't bad. Okay, fine, let's put a doctor in there. You want to have a bad doctor? You want to have a doctor that doesn't care about your surgery if you really need one? Don't you want to have a good doctor? I want to call 911 and feel safe. I want to call 911 and have them show up and not target me just because of my skin color. I want to be able to feel safe in America, and that's not our story. Just a couple weeks ago, there was a group of people who were protesting COVID, and I don't know who they thought they were, thinking that this virus was just gonna go away because they want to go out and get haircuts. But they went out, they protested, and they were protesting the stay-at-home order. The stay-at-home order was, I don't want to say it was lifted, but some of the rules were, yes, lifted. They became more lenient because of their protesting, right? Do you see a difference between when people are protesting against COVID, who were majorly white, versus the people who are voting, or excuse me, versus the people who are protesting police brutality? Now, I can't say if they're mainly black or not, but I know that I see a sea of people, mixed people, all around the world fighting for this. But there's two different reactions. There's people over here being like, oh, they're just ridiculous, let them get to whatever they want, you know, Trump telling them to just, you know, just ease up a little bit. Whereas on this side, we're thugs, we're monsters, we're just looting, we're just rioting, we're just these monkeys out here not making no type of sense. There is a huge discrepancy between the majority and the minority within this country, and there's huge discrepancies everywhere. I've heard that Toronto is a very racist place. I heard that the UK is a very racist place, you know, from people who live there. I'm not just making it up. You know, a lot of YouTubers were talking about their experiences with, you know, being in this area, and I would have never guessed it. I genuinely thought that it was major, like, European countries that were racist, and here, right? Like, that's what I thought was major. But we also have, the black community has a very terrible relationship with the Asian community, and even though the black community and the Latino community doesn't have a terrible relationship, we're not together. We each act as if we're separate, but what we need to do is come together and be together and fight the majority and say that we matter too. Black lives matter, brown lives matter, we matter. And that's the thing that people aren't understanding here, because they think that we're just saying only our lives matter, but that is not the case. The reason why all lives don't matter is because minorities' lives don't matter. It's because black lives don't matter to the majority, and that's the problem. That's why people are rioting, that's why people are looting, that's why people are protesting, because the only way that we can express our anger is to hurt you, not necessarily where you've hurt us, but just to hurt you. And you've heard us in pretty much every single area, and the only way that people are going to start paying attention is if we hit their money. I also want to make it a point to say that a lot of new information has resurfaced, and a lot of the looting is happening from people who are not even wanting to be a part of the cause, okay? So this can be people who are opportunists, undercover cops, and etc. And I'm not going to say that there aren't protesters doing it, but there are a lot of people who are not for the cause. And I feel like, me personally, I'm not condoning the looting, or I'm not condoning the excessive behavior, because there's a lot of things that's falling into that. There's a lot of police that are inciting these riots. There's a lot of people who are like not even from Alabama coming to Alabama to break down everything here. There's people who take advantage of these protests to create these big fires and create destruction. There are opportunists out here who completely deviate the whole message to fit their own message, and that's completely side. But the thing that I'm trying to say is, like, even if there are protesters like ruining businesses, which I'm sure there are, I can kind of understand it. Why? Because we have to hit you where it hurts the most, and the way it hurts the most is in your pockets. So if we start hitting your pockets, that's maybe, you know, you're gonna start paying attention to us. But that's just my own little rant on the side over there. It's crazy that, like, while everyone's at home, everyone has the opportunity to go out and protest, but the only way that we were able to get people to start listening, to start looking at us and be like, oh yeah, there is a problem, is by video footage, and also is because everyone's at home not doing anything, so you can't distract yourself from what's going on. And that's why I think God knew what he was doing. God knew what he was doing when he brought on this virus. God knew what he was doing with everything that's going on, because we need, all of us, and I hate to use this term, but we truly need to wake up. We truly need to say, okay, there is a problem in America, and we need to stop hiding it. We need to stop acting like, you know, the civil rights was just for states' rights.
It is infuriating that anyone needs to say this in 2020. But as more Confederate monuments are torn down, it's again coming to our attention that millions of people in this country do not believe that the Civil War was fought over slavery, or that the Confederate flag is a pro-slavery symbol. I know that it was. I know that the Civil War was fought over slavery. You want to know how I know? Because they told me. They told you. Yes, my inquisitive imaginary friend. They told me in this. This is the Confederate Constitution, as well as many declarations of secession. So, if the war wasn't fought over slavery, surely it wouldn't be mentioned all over this. Let's dive in, shall we? Article 1, Section 9, Clause 4. No bill of attainder ex post facto law or law denying or impairing the right of property in Negro slaves shall be passed. No laws stopping slavery shall be passed in the Confederacy. Article 4, Section 2, Clause 1. The citizens of each state shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states, and shall have the right of transit and sojourn in any state of this Confederacy with their slaves and other property, and the right of property in said slaves shall not be thereby impaired. So this is where it gets interesting, because the argument most of the time is that Civil War wasn't fought over slavery, it was about federal overreach and states' rights. But what this part says is that we don't really care if your state decides it doesn't want slavery. You can't do that. Federal jurisdiction supersedes that. So that kind of kills that argument. But let's go forward. Maybe this next one clarifies that the whole thing really isn't about slavery. Article 4, Section 2, Clause 3. No slave or other person held to service or labor in any state or territory of the Confederate States under the laws thereof, escaping or lawfully carried into another, shall, in consequence of any law or regulation therein, be discharged from such service or labor. Again, if a slave escaped to a state which did not have chattel slavery, they're still a slave. Article 4, Section 3, Clause 3, there's a bit about the potential of the Confederacy acquiring new territories. In all such territory, the institution of Negro slavery, as it now exists in the Confederate States, shall be recognized and protected by Congress and by the territorial government. I don't know, that seems pretty straightforward, but let's check some declarations of secession to see what they say. Here's Mississippi's. It's the second line. Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery. Thoroughly identified. The greatest material interest of the world, its labor supplies the product which constitutes by far the largest and most important portions of commerce on the earth. Essentially, slavery makes us a ton of money. We want to keep it. Here's the second line of Georgia's. For the last 10 years, we have had numerous and serious causes of complaint against our non-slave holding Confederate states with reference to the subject of African slavery. South Carolina. The people of the state of South Carolina, in convention assembled on the 26th day of April AD 1852, declared that the frequent violations of the Constitution of the United States by the federal government and its encroachments upon the reserved rights of the states fully justified this state in then withdrawing from the federal union, but in deference to the opinions and wishes of other slave-holding states, she forbore at that time to exercise this right. So that is one sentence, one horrific sentence. I guess they tried to confuse people, but they still slipped slavery in. What else we got here? Oh, get a load of Texas. She was received as a Commonwealth holding, maintaining and protecting the institution known as Negro slavery. Maintaining and protecting the institution known as Negro slavery. The servitude of the African to the white race within her limits. A relation that had existed from the first settlement of her wilderness by the white race, and which her people intended should exist for all future time. So Texas wanted infinite slavery, and they were pretty explicit about it. How about Virginia? And the federal government having perverted said powers, not only to the injury of the people of Virginia, but to the oppression of the southern slave-holding states. So it wasn't about states' rights, but even if you want to say that it was about the right of those states to keep slavery. All of this stuff really matters. It matters because it's the truth, and it matters because it's a way to combat the whitewashing and softening of history, which is another tendril of white supremacy. We need to reckon with our brutal history, not run away from it and not lie about it. The Civil War was fought over slavery, and the Confederate flag is a pro-slavery flag. No, it's about heritage and history and tradition. Sure, it's about the heritage, history, and tradition of owning slaves. Tear all the monuments down. All of them.
We need to stop acting like America doesn't have a history of racism. We need to stop acting like it stopped at slavery. We need to stop acting like people to this day think that all black people live in the ghetto, have super long nails, can't swim, love watermelon, like all these stereotypes. We need to stop that. You know what I'm saying? There's still people out here who think that the reason why this is happening to us is because we act ridiculous, we don't wear belts, we sag, and it's our fault. Can you believe people that I went to high school with, people that I went to high school with posting about this stuff, being like, well, if they weren't out here without their fathers, maybe they'd have some sense. How does that make sense? And then I saw another post being like, you kill our fathers and then make fun of us for not having one. And that's real. Like, honestly, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, some situations aren't like all situation is that every single father got killed. No, I understand that some fathers are not in the picture, but that's not the point. That's what? And the thing about it also is that there's another argument where people are saying like, oh, well, white people get more killed than black people. I'm not even gonna touch on that because you're the whole majority. So, okay, guess I'm gonna touch on that. Let's talk about it, right? Let's put 16 people in a room. There's 10 white people and there's 6 black people, right? 4 of the 6 black people get shot, right? But 5 out of the 10 white people get shot. How many more black people do you think got shot? That is the ratio. There's a hell of a lot of white people in America, okay? So even though you can throw out your statistics and throw out the numbers and be like, oh, well, this number is so much more than black people, but put in the ratio. Black people are 3 times more likely to be shot in the same given situation than a white person. The point is the way in which we are being killed. The way in which we're being killed is that we're not getting stopped, we're not getting treated fairly, we're not getting stopped and saying, hey, let me see your license or registration, please. Let's talk about it. It's the way in which we're being killed because we're automatically deemed a criminal, a threat, just because we're black. That doesn't make sense. How am I a threat because of the color of my skin? God created me just like he created you. It makes no sense. So while I got that whole summary out of the way, I wanted to come up here and talk about what's next. So what? Now what are we doing, right? And it's not, I'm not saying so what, like who cares? I'm saying, what does all this protesting do? And the one thing that I wanted to come up here and to talk about is to be like, yes, we're moving, yes, we're writing, yes, we're angry, but what we cannot forget, what we got to continuously do is to take that anger and put it in the right direction. We also can't forget to look at the different positives. And I know that might come off wrong, like what positive is there? Let me tell you what protesting does. Protesting in these last couple of days have done so much, but we're not done yet. And I wanted to come up here and tell you guys about the many different positives that we have experienced. And also I wanted to talk to you guys about the many other things that we can do as a community, as a black community, as minorities in general, and even as our allies, the white people who know that there's other people out there that are so wrong. Amanda Seales made this point that there's white people and there's people who happen to be white, and I think it's so enriching because it's not necessarily stripping you from your color, but there's racist people and then there's also people who are white who are not racist at all. And we have to go forward and to separate the two, because we can't say all white people are racist. But just like cops, it's hard because we can't delineate the line. It's so blurred that it's hard not to look at somebody and think, no, I don't want to be your friend because I don't want to take the chance. And that's the thing with police and police encounters. We don't want to take the chance. I'm sorry if that sounds unfair, but welcome to our world. We don't know what to do anymore. We don't know who we can trust because it seems like everybody is like this. And we also don't want to be the same hate that we're trying to be out here and eradicate, right? Like, sorry for the alliteration, but we're not trying to, I don't think you could fight hate with hate. So I don't think that's something that we should do at all. We can't look at white people and be like, oh, all of you guys are racist, because then that's doing the same thing that they've been doing to us. Not at a government or systematic level, but it's creating more hate. I want to talk to you about the many different ways that protesting helps, because I know people are looking out here and they're calling it rioting. We're not rioting, okay? We're protesting police brutality. That's what we're protesting. We are protesting police brutality. We're not rioting. Stop calling it rioting as if we're just out here being ridiculous and throwing up things and just putting things on fire like there's no purpose. There's a purpose here, and we're trying to get the means to the end. That's what we're doing. So like I said, right, what are the positives? What's the next move? So the first thing that I want to say, the next move for us to do is, like I said, right? Remember the positives. Here's a list of a couple things that I found, not even found, but has happened in midst of all these protests, right? The NAACP is calling on the United Nations to step up and classify the mistreatment of Black people in the United States by the police as a human rights violation, aggressively call out the US government in the process, and impose sanctions if necessary. That's what protesting does. Another thing, the FBI just approved white supremacists, their hate on the same level as an ISIS threat. So that is also going to be taken care of. In DC, we now have a Black Lives Matter plaza with a huge mural. So anybody who goes over there, they'll see it. I hope it stays there forever. I hope it stays there forever. But the thing about it is that it's there, people see it, and it's awareness, okay? It's people who are saying that they are there for us. Let's talk about Kanye. Okay, next one, let's talk about Kanye. So allegedly, I don't know too much about this, and I know it's kind of weird, it's like this is a positive. So Kanye has donated a lot of money, I think $1 million. If I find the correct number, I will put it on the screen. But he has donated to George Floyd's daughter for her college fund. He's also donated to Ahmaud Arbery's family to help with funeral expenses, as well as Breonna Taylor. And he's also, let me look at it correctly, and he's also apparently only sided with Trump so that way he can get innocent people out of jail. I don't know how true that is. I don't know how true that is, but I want to say first and foremost, the fact that he's donating to these families, all that money he's got, you have to put it somewhere useful. And so that's one prime example that I thought I would share with you guys. Another thing, I know this might be some things that you guys already know, but we have to be happy. I don't want to say settle. We're not settling. This is not enough, okay? This is not enough. But we can't sit here and act like things aren't happening, okay? Another thing, all 4 cops in George Floyd's, incident, they're being charged. 3 of them are being charged with aiding and abetting. And, Derek Chauvin, he's being charged with second degree murder. We got that 3rd degree murder charge up to 2nd degree. I think we need to stay at 2nd degree because I think he would get free with 1st degree. So that's also a blessing. I hope he gets, I pray to God that he does not get out. I pray to God that he gets convicted. He's guilty. I hope the jury sees that there's no mistake to this, okay? It wasn't a mistake. He didn't accidentally lean on his neck for 8 minutes and 47 seconds. Let me not get on my rant. Another thing, right? There was so many positives here. This is the biggest civil rights movement in the entire world. We have made history. The whole 50 states have protested, as well as 18 different countries. Okay, we even got the Amish out here protesting for his life, all of their lives, because Black Lives Matter. And a few more things. The last 3 things that are definitely effects of people protesting is that Breonna Taylor's case has been reopened, praise God. Another thing is that Minnesota is looking at banning chokeholds from police, like police can no longer chokehold people. And also, lastly, the Confederate statues, I guess you can call it, the murals, are slowly but surely being taken away and taken apart from everywhere in, I don't want to say in the South, but pretty much everywhere. And I want to say that I want to urge people to read the Confederate Constitution. A lot of people need to be educated on our history. The thing about it is that I'm slightly kind of tired of educating people on their wrongs, because just like I had to research my own history that's not taught in schools, you have to do your same research. If you want to learn to help, get educated, okay? Because the thing about it is, like, we learn about the Civil War and people out here are like, oh, the Civil War was not about slavery. The Confederate flag is not about slavery. It's about states' rights. It's about states having their ability to do whatever they want outside of the federal government. Right? States' rights to do what? Like, you gotta be real with yourself. So when you're out here, so proud of the Confederate flag, what are you proud of? You really have to be honest and ask yourself. And if you're uncomfortable, then that's good, because we're not gonna be comfortable in change. You can't be comfortable if you're changing. If you want change, you're not going to be comfortable. And that's just honest to God truth about everything. So, number 2, another thing that we need to do for our next move. Now I said 1, we need to remain positive that things are going to change. Why? Because a lot of things are changing. However, it does not stop there. 2, I want to say this, but I don't want to offend people who are not necessarily spiritual or religious. But I do think that we need to pray for these families. We need to pray for a better world, better America, for better livelihoods for everyone, for every single person of color, for everyone. Because when we talk about equality, who are we talking about here? Are we talking about just for the majority, or are we talking about for everyone? And that's the biggest question that we need to ask, because I'm telling you, we need a change. These police need to be dismantled and rebuilt so it can help everyone. I think that police need to be educated, and not every single cops out there are educated in a sense. They only go through the cops program. But what I believe is that they need a 4-year degree, because a lot of people that I've known who were insane conservatives went to college, became educated, and now they can even still be conservative, but they now have an open mind, right? One of my best friends used to be conservative, and now she's incredibly PC. She's incredibly liberal because she has an education. You know what everyone always preaches about having an education. An education opens your mind to the different possibilities out there, to everybody's single walk of life, because not everybody is the same. And that's the thing about this whole conflict, is that the majority thinks that every single minority in their respective groups are the same. And so we're looked at as the same, which is why this happens in government, which is why this happens with racist doctors not caring for black women. This is why this happens to black men who are standing there with their arms up, ready to get arrested, but are kicked in their backs and struggling to get handcuffed, who are grabbed by our necks because we're automatically seen as less than. That's the videos that I've seen pop up recently. I've seen people who talk about their family members getting thrown out of a 12-foot building, I think it was an apartment building, because of what? Because of what? We talk about all these Karens using their privilege to get it on black people. Because of what? Why do you think that's fair? Why do you think that's honest? Why do you think you have the ability to do that? Because this world, this government gives you the ability to do that, and we're not having it anymore. No, we're not. So I think the first move to go, I know I put it as number 2, but the first move to go for me would be to pray, because we have to pray for a better world. We have to pray for these families who are struggling, because at the end of the day, they have experienced a loss. They have experienced a loss. And I know for me, I would be grieving. I wouldn't know what to do. I would be angry. I'd probably be out there on the streets just trying to find a way to get my anger out. I honestly have no idea what I would do, because my baby brother is 21 years old. I pray to God every day that he's been alive for these 21 years, because someone can look at him and look at him wrong, and that can be the end of his life right then and there. And that's for my little brother. My sister, she didn't just have a baby, but my sister has a son. All right, he's turning 3 this year. I want him to live as long as God possibly allows him. This is why we're fighting. This is why we're fighting, because we deserve to live. There are some people who want you to be silent, but then there are others that want peace. Okay, we want peace. We want to be able to walk down the streets without someone calling the cops on us for walking while black, for driving while black. And third, lastly, what we need to do for our next moves, we need action. We need to actually do something. We need, of course, to protest, but other things that we need to do that actually puts people in the office that we want to, we need to vote. We have to pay attention to who's in office, okay? I just read what Obama's statement on Instagram, right? I just read that, and he says that not a lot of people, especially young people, vote for the different officials that get into our local offices. We need to pay attention to who's being in office. We need to vote for the people that we actually want. And I say to go as far as to go into that line of field. If you're really interested into politics, why don't you be that person that brings on change? We need action. We need people to vote. We need to vote to get Trump out of office. Dear Christ, we need to get him out. Like, we also, different things, I know I keep on rambling about voting, but different things that we need to do, right? We need to buy black, okay? We need to listen to our history, okay? Even if you're not black, you need to read up on black history, because we are not taught that in school, because America wants to just throw everything that is done under the rug and call it a day and be like, well, that never happened. Stop talking about it. It doesn't happen anymore. It happens every single day. Someone has a story. Everybody has a story. So like I said, right, we need to read up on our Black history. We need to educate ourselves on Black history. We need to vote. We also need to eliminate our implicit biases. So stop talking like, oh, that person acts white, oh, that person acts Black. We need to stop painting everybody with various different definitions of what we think that color is. We need to stop treating people as if they're automatically smart because they're Asian. They automatically know how to clean because they're Latino. We need to stop treating people like that. That is where the hate starts, okay? Hate is not freaking, like, we're not born with hate. We're taught that. And we need to stop that, because that is not helping our brothers and sisters out here. That is not building a better community. And also, I want to put out there that there's this app out there called Solomon's Shield, like Solomon, like the Bible, Solomon. I'll put it on the screen, called Solomon's Shield. I found it the other day, and people are circulating it through Instagram, and it tells you about your rights. It tells you your rights when you get pulled over in a car. It tells you about your rights when you're detained. It tells you about your rights when a cop shows up at your house, and it also gives you the ability to videotape whatever is going on at the moment. And I think they're going to update it with some more information, but it has a lot of different laws out there that you can't necessarily look up while you're being, you know, in the police's presence. But if you have the opportunity, it can educate you on different things to do. So like I said, right guys, we need to remain positive that things are going to change because of the many different things that are changing. But we also need to know that that's not enough, right? I believe we need to pray. And for people out there who don't believe in God, hope for something better, right? Like, let's be that change that we want to see. And lastly, we need to do action. We need to actually do things that gets people into the offices that make these different changes, because we can't just, yes, using our voice does a lot. I'm not saying it doesn't, but we also need to vote. We also need to educate ourselves on many different things, many different stories, many different histories. Because like I said, you don't know somebody else's shoes until you've walked in it. You don't know about someone else's story until you read it, until you listen to their story. And there's a lot of things that I don't even know about my own history because it wasn't taught to me. I have to go out there and search it for myself. So a lot of things are going to be put on the screen, where there's a lot of different books out there that you can read. There's a lot of different podcasts that you can listen to. I know I mentioned this before, but Amanda Seals, Small Doses, Potent Truths for Everyday Use. That's her book. That's very imperative. It's not specifically, maybe it is in a broad context, like Black related, of course, because she's a Black woman, and it talks about her experiences, but she talks about many different things about narcissism and etc. But she does talk a lot about Black relations, because that's like that's what she talks about, like for all her life. That's what she's talked about. And also her podcast is very informative about different relational issues within the Black community, right? I don't want to hear anything about what about Black on Black crime. That's not the point right now. Let's focus on what really is going on here, because you're trying to deviate from the main message because you know something's wrong. When people are out here trying to fight all of this, you know something's wrong when they're trying so hard to get people to shut up. And that's all I gotta say on that. That's really all I gotta say on that. I know that I kind of got maybe went off on a few tangents because I'm very passionate about this topic. A lot of people that I've noticed who I thought, you know, didn't necessarily care about like the Black community are speaking out because it's blatantly wrong. There's been a series of video footage that has shown what it's like to be Black in America. And people are finally saying, oh, so that's what you were talking about. People are finally listening. It's a shame that people are finally listening, but I'm happy that someone's listening. You know, like, but it's not enough. And I keep saying that over and over because it's not enough until things change. So with all that being said, thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you for listening to me ramble. I wasn't expecting this video to be super long, but it's long. All of my social medias are down in the description box below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your post notifications so you never miss when I post a new video. Thank you guys for listening to me rant. Don't forget, okay, stay positive, pray, and also move. Don't just sit there and post a black square on your Instagram, okay? We're watching the silence. Speak up, do something about it. Be an ally, be a mover, be change. Do something for the movement, okay? And that's all I'm saying, okay? Thank you guys for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.